All right, set up and ready to go. Thanks everybody for joining us for branching out with VA loans. Do you like my little play on words there? With everybody's favorite lending wizard, Sara Cipriano. If you have not met with Sara yet for coffee, please do so. She's a hoot. You may have coffee come out of your nose with all the stories that she can tell you. But so VA buyers is one of the biggest questions we get in lending with like different loan programs. And I think we really do miss the boat when it comes to VA buyers. I mean, they get a lot of benefits that other buyers don't get. So Sara's going to tell you all about it. So I'm going to shut up because you guys listen to me talk on just about every training, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
Well, I am excited to get to talk to everybody. And, it's funny, VA loans, I feel like they should get the most attention of anybody because they serve our country, right? So these are people who are, sacrificing their time, their family, all of the things, and they should get all of the things. So the nice thing with VA, and what I'll do is just kind of go over some touch points on it. And then we can just open it up to kind of Q&A. Like if you guys have had situations or questions or, just different things, then we can answer those. But the biggest benefit I would say for VA lending is that obviously there's no down payment, right? So that's what most people go off of. They have no down payment. There's no PMI. So they can put no money down and not have the private mortgage insurance, which with conventional, if you're not putting 20% down, you're going to have that. USDA, you're going to have it. They just call it something different. And FHA, you have it all of the time, regardless. So you could put 50% down on an FHA loan. You're still going to have PMI for the life of the loan because that's the program that it is. It's government backed. So the downside to VA is, and I guess this is what most people would say the downside is, it's a little bit stricter with appraisals. But honestly, the VA handbook when it comes to lending, they follow the same guidelines as FHA. So it's literally the same thing. So if this is what they're going to flag on an FHA appraisal, that's exactly what they're going to flag on VA. That's exactly what they're going to flag on USDA. So that part of it is interchangeable. Where it's a little bit different, when we're ordering appraisals, you have to order them all through the VA, and you have to have a certain license to do a VA appraisal. So they basically rotate throughout our area, the different appraisers, and you don't get to pick. So we have a couple in our area that are a little bit tougher to deal with. I've tried to bridge that gap with them because I feel like they're tough because people kind of give them a hard time because they mark a lot of things off, but it helps to have a good relationship with them. And what I would say as a realtor, if you have a VA appraiser come out, they're going to be, I don't want to say more lenient, but they're going to be a little bit nicer if you're nicer to them, just like anybody else that you deal with in life. So but other than that, they're just following the same FHA guidelines. They're going to look at the chip and peeling paint. They're going to look at safety issues. So if you have steps, more than 3 steps, if there's not a handrail, they're going to look at that. They're going to look at if you have more so going down into basement steps, how sometimes it's open where there's no walls. So you have to have a handrail on both sides. So that's considered a safety issue. And that's actually been coming up even on some conventional appraisals. So that's that. Now, who is eligible for VA? It's any active duty service member, a veteran, or an eligible surviving spouse. So say a husband served and he's since passed away, his surviving widow can take out a VA loan using his benefits because she will continue to get VA benefits from them. Some of the things that people don't know, and which is kind of interesting, when we're going into these markets where they're very, people are putting in offers higher than what, I don't want to say maybe they should be, but they're just like, listen, we love the house. We're going to bridge the gap. We're going to do whatever we can do. One of the gray areas with VA appraisals is if you say you go and you put an offer in on a house for 100,000, and the appraiser comes back and they can't get 100,000 out of the value for whatever reason. So they issue what's called a tidewater. And basically what that is they'll let the lender know, I'm having a hard time coming up with this value. Can you get with the realtors, find out where they're coming up with their price, like the comps, and send me some comps, and I'm going to see if I can make it work. So say that happens. So say Chelsea has a buyer, I call her and say, hey, Chelsea, I don't know what the value is he's giving, but he issued tidewater, which means he's not giving the purchase price. She sends in comps, we send him in, the value still comes in at 95,000. One of the things, and this is something that a lot of places don't know that you can do, and you can't do this with any other loan type. With the VA, the buyer they've agreed to bridge the gap. They're like, listen, I'm okay with paying 100,000, but I don't have $5,000. You can actually have the buyer write a letter to the VA stating, okay, we viewed this house, we viewed several other houses. This is why we feel that this is valued at this way. The VA will actually go over, I don't want to say over the appraiser's head, but they will give that appraised value 15% more than what it was, just based off of a heartfelt letter from the borrower, which sounds crazy. So say the purchase, like the value came in at, oh my gosh, at 95,000. Sorry, I'm trying to think. I can't think today for some reason. They could add potentially $14,000 onto that value just based off of a heartfelt letter, a couple of comps, which we could use those same comps that Chelsea brought, and just explaining to them like why they want to buy the house. Because the VA genuinely tries to do things and look out for the vets, and they know that a lot of times when they're looking for a property, there's other, whether it's, where the location is, or maybe it's close to family, like they're trying to find something for whatever reason, and they really try to work with them. So that's one kind of loophole with VA lending that a lot of places don't honor and won't do, that we can do. So if you get a little bit of a low appraisal, you just have to send a letter in usually. And I've gotten probably, I don't know, 10 or 20 of them corrected. So it's something that definitely, it works. So that's one thing when it comes to value. And a lot of realtors don't know that because they just think, oh, VA, I don't want to deal with chipped and peeling paint. Well, I'd much rather deal with painting a handrail than dealing with, 5 or 10,000 less in value. So that's one benefit to it. But the other benefit too is when you are asking for seller assist with VA, and these two kind of go hand in hand a little bit. If you Google it and say, how much seller assist can you get on a VA purchase? It's going to say 4%. But the actual guideline is 4% or unlimited, as long as it's covering fees and costs associated with the loan. So that can be your title work, that can be your realtor costs. Now, as of last summer, they made it where the realtor can charge a VA buyer realtor cost. That can be if they have to pay points and fees because maybe their credit's a little bit lower. That can be escrow setup. That can be paying for the appraisal. It can be anything. So just to give you an example, we had a client. It was a small house in Sharon, 72,000, I believe, and he was buying from a family friend. So they agreed to give it. It was a $72,000 purchase with $11,000 in seller assist, and it covered everything. So they literally took no money to closing whatsoever on a $72,000 house in Sharon. And I believe the taxes were around $2,800. So, I mean, that's a huge, huge benefit, especially when, a lot of people, they can afford the payment, but to scrounge up and to get that much money for closing, it's just almost impossible. So, that's another thing that is a huge benefit, is that you have unlimited seller assist as long as you're not paying off debt. So like if you have to, pay off a credit card or something to qualify, you can't use seller assist for that, but you can use it for literally just about anything else. And then the other thing too, and these are just different little caveats that they have. if you call like just any typical bank, they're going to say, okay, their debt to income has to be at or below 44%. But the actual rule with VA is that you can, as long as you get, when we run through our underwriting system, you can, as long as you get approved eligible findings, then you can do it. So where that kind of comes in place is somebody who might have a really great credit score, but say they're using, they have a part-time job. We can't use their income, but we can use their VA benefit income. Their debt to income on the back end on paper might only be, it might be high. It might be like 55, 57, 58%. They may have other family that lives with them that's helping pay their bills. There's a whole picture, but those people can't be on the loan. Even at like a 58, 59, 60% debt to income ratio, they can still get approved and close on a loan. So there's just a lot more relaxed, because I feel like they're a little bit more forgiving in situations than any other guideline where it might be a little more strict with like conventional financing or different things like that. Does anyone have any questions so far? Because that's a lot of word vomit. No, everyone's so quiet.
A lot of good information.
Yeah. So
I like that you mentioned Tidewater, because I mentioned that to an agent not too long ago who's been in the business for a long time and had no idea what Tidewater was.
Yeah, Tidewater and it what's nice though is you're not just opening the report and thinking, oh, this is good, but then it's actually not good. Like when you get Tidewater, then they're giving you a chance to help them find comps, which is the only kind of appraisal order that does that. But like in our area too, another thing, like when you are a VA buyer, now when you are buying the house, you have to set up escrow no matter what. But if you're a fully disabled veteran, once you own your home, you can actually go to the county courthouse and you can apply in the state of Pennsylvania to be exempt from property taxes. So when you close, you might have $3,000 in taxes that you have to escrow for. But then once you apply for that, if you're fully disabled, I've never, I can't say guarantee that you'd get it, but I've never seen somebody who's been 80% or more disabled who has had to pay property taxes. So that's another thing, whether it's me doing the loan or, any other bank, if you're doing a VA loan, make sure, that you mention to them, you might not want to say, hey, are you fully disabled? Because that would be weird. But make sure you at least tell them, check with the VA office in your county, because once you own the home, it's just like applying for homestead. You can apply for that VA benefit where you may not have to pay any property taxes, which is a huge, huge benefit. And that's not something that really gets anybody paid. It's just something that's a good service that they're like, oh yeah, this person not only sold me a house, but they're giving me all this good advice that's just going to save me money, and that's what people want to do. And that's what you want. You want to give them little tidbits. That way you have those referrals later, because the referrals, and you guys will hear me say this so many times, the way that you're going to do well is not only by just being a good agent, but by giving good advice, because then you get referrals, which is that mailbox money. It's that residual income down the line where you're always trying to get those leads. But when you get your name out there, that you're like and it's funny because you'll end up helping a pocket of people, and then your name will just spread like wildfire through that like group or a section of people. And then, if you make the transaction easy for them and you save them money, they're going to love you. And that's your residual mailbox money, that residual income down the line with referrals. Let me see. So one of the big things too, and I think I said this a little bit, it used to be before where agents could not charge any kind of realtor fee. You couldn't charge a VA buyer commission. You couldn't charge them anything. Well, then when all of this stuff happened last year, they said, okay, well, we have to revisit this, because that's discriminating against vets with you having to negotiate your commission for a buyer's agent. So as of, I want to say it was August 10th of last summer, you can charge them your fee that you charge them through Realty One. You can charge them commission, you can charge them whatever you put on your buyer agency, you can charge them. So They're just like any other buyer as far as that's concerned. And the nice thing too is like we do a lot of grants in the area. So with PHFA, which you can do any type of loan, but with those types of loans, you can, a lot of times you still get the same 5% of the purchase price in the form of a grant, and that can help pay for those commissions, and it can help pay for any other costs that they might not need to even ask for seller assist if they don't have a lot of cash. So you can couple VA with other grant programs. And then in Lawrence County, they also have the $2,000 that they do, which we do a ton of those. And I don't know if any of you have talked to Anita, but she's amazing. So she pushes that program like crazy, and she's super easy to work with. So if you haven't talked to her, then we need to set up a call with her one day because you guys will love her. And she just wants to give out money. So who doesn't like that? Let me think of what else. You guys have questions? No. They're so quiet.
I just learned about that forgiveness of property taxes. I didn't know that was a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you, even just in passing, like if you're talking to somebody who maybe they're going to be a conventional buyer, but they mention that they're a veteran, or if they have a hat on that says, Vietnam or whatever it is, you know how, they wear the hats and stuff. My uncle wears his hat everywhere he goes. It's like, it's the only, I asked him the other day, I said, do you have any other hats in rotation? He's like, I like this one. I'm like, okay, perfect. But, it's just even something to like spark a conversation with people, because at the end of the day, that's your conversation with them that's going to trigger them to say, oh, I remember Belle. I remember Christina. I remember, Ebony. I remember whomever. And that's going to trigger them like, oh, she helped me a lot. So it's just those conversations come up in the goofiest times, and they're going to remember she helped me and gave me these little tidbits of information, and just to be nice. So, if you need to buy a house, call this person. The other thing I would say, a lot of times, so everyone sees like Veterans United and, all of these companies that are online. Veterans United is actually, I believe it's called Enterprise Bank or Enterprise or something like that. But it's a DBA. So it's literally just like if First National called themselves Veterans United. So people think just because it's a pun on words, they think, oh, this is a veteran run and owned company. They specialize in that based around a name, because that was a niche that they thought, okay, we can get a lot of business this way. People are going to think that we are solely veterans, but they do a lot of other things too, but they're not, there's no like special thing that they do or anything like that. So what I would say, if you ever do have a VA buyer, USAA, Veterans United, all of those, they're all good in their own way. But just make sure from all of those places, I can't stress enough, make sure you get cost sheets, because especially in the state of Pennsylvania, our taxes are escrowed so differently. And some of these buyers, they just don't have a ton of money. So getting those cost sheets from whoever the lender is, whether it's me, whether it's an online lender, whether it's another bank, anybody, make sure you get the cost sheet, because we have to take in Pennsylvania basically a year's worth of taxes and homeowners insurance, plus usually 2 months. So figure 14 months. If you get that cost sheet and you see that there's not really anything for escrow on there, that's going to just make you and help you look knowledgeable too for your buyers, because if their taxes are $2,500 a year and they have nothing set up really for escrow, maybe then a month or two, that's going to be a $2,500 swing in how much they take to closing. You could do all the right things the entire time, and then they're not going to have any money to close. So, it's just one of those things where you just looking at it, it's going to help you. So that way you don't get into that situation, and you can just be an advocate for them on that part of it from the very beginning. Or if you ever have anything you're not sure of, just send it to me and I can look at it and say, no, tell them this is wrong. They have to ask for escrows or whatever. So that's that. Let me see what else I can think of. For appraisals, I get a lot of these questions. And this is really for VA. This is for any kind of government, any kind of, because they all follow the same guidelines. The big thing they're looking at, they want to make sure that the property is safe, sanitary, and structurally sound. So you can't have chipped or peeling paint. You can't have exposed wires. And what I mean by exposed wires is like even in the basement, you know how typically like they'll drill through the floor, the beams, truss, I can't even think today, but they'll drill through that and they'll run the wires. So they're not just hanging down where like somebody can grab them and pull on them. They're wanting things to be tucked up, be put away. They're wanting, you know, if there's a junction box, they're wanting a cover to be on it. You can't have just like a light hanging from the ceiling. There has to be, you know, some kind of like fixture. It has to be up and hanging so that somebody can't just grab the wires and run, which I don't know why anybody would do that, but apparently someone somewhere has done it. So it's a rule now. It has to be livable. So you have to have a space to live, to sleep, to go to the bathroom, to cook dinner. Those are things that are really non-negotiable. So you're not really going to get any kind of a fixer-upper and be able to do a VA loan. That's going to be the same as like what an FHA loan guideline is. We can, in the winter months, escrow for certain things. And in the summer, most of the time, you can get most of the repairs done. But if you have like a septic or say there's a well or something like that that needs to be done, and there's nothing wrong with the existing, but it maybe just needs fixed, those things you can escrow for year round. But like chipped and peeling paint and things like that, if it's nice out, they want you to fix it prior to closing. Things you can never escrow for, you can't escrow anything for the foundation. So if there's a bow in the wall, that can't be escrowed for because it's considered a safety issue. You cannot escrow for Pacific boxes. So for electrical, if they flag that, if they flag knob and tube, then they're going to tell you to fix it. In our area, the appraisers are pretty good. So a lot of times the knob and tube is for the most part either out or it's very limited. They're not going to flag a 2 foot by 3 foot area 9 times out of 10. They're going to say, hey, you want to fix this, but you have this kind of box and you're safe. They're never going to escrow for mold or asbestos, you know, radon, things like that. Like those are things that all have to be fixed prior to closing. And then with underwriting, when they go through and look at it, they're looking at it just like any other type of loan. They're going to follow the FHA guidelines. So if you hear anything about FHA, it's the same thing for VA. I believe that's really about it. It's a really good program. You can couple it with grants. You can get into where, you know, a lot of times with VA, because there is no down payment, if you're doing like VA with the PHFA program, they're going to get 5% of the purchase price. So it's a way where your offer might look a little bit better because you are going to get down payment assistance and you're not going to have to ask the seller for seller assist. So that's one way that we can structure things. And if you ever get into a bind with any of that, we're pretty good at getting creative with how to structure a deal to make it look appealing. And chances are I've probably done 10 cost sheets on the property already anyhow. So it's kind of, you know, we're always in the market to try to make people win. And you kind of see what's going on out there. And a lot of times people are still putting in just cookie cutter offers. They're not really getting, you know, creative with it. You know, but we try to do that and try to help make sure the seller's getting what they can get, the buyer's getting what they can get, and that, you know, all parties know that there's going to be open communication on it, which is the biggest thing right now because people just, for some reason, don't talk to each other, which is crazy. But other than that, I mean, these VA loans, they're really good. They're great for the buyer. There's a lot of other programs and even things outside of it that you can help your buyers get. And it's just going to make you guys look like rock stars if you know that, because again, these are things that you're not getting paid on. You're just literally doing a service and helping them and trying to help them save money. So that's it. I think that's all I got unless somebody has questions.
Boy, everybody's quiet today.
I know. It's because it's 4:30. They're all tired.
I know, right? All right, who has questions? I'm going to start picking on people. Anything that you want Sara to go over in more detail? Quiet, man. I think they all went away on vacay today. They were like, yeah.
Same. I mean, same. If I would be embarrassed to say how many really, really, really big iced coffees I've had in the last week. My husband came home with a cup. It was about as big as this one, and he's like, "I feel like you just need this today." And it was a iced caramel latte, and it was the most. And I usually just drink black coffee. Like I've been trying to be good and not have a lot of junk. And I'm telling you, I was up. I think I worked that night till like 2:30 in the morning because I couldn't go to sleep. Like, this is a bad idea at 5 p.m. Don't do that again. So
sorry, my phone is like blowing up. Blowing up.
All right.
Belle, wait a minute. Belle has a question. I've never closed on a VA loan, but I am sure when the time comes, I'll have lots of questions.
You're going to be great at it because you've done lots of FHA loans. So you know how this is going to go. And what I'll do too is I'll work on a maybe something that we can co-brand, even that if you have a VA buyer, then you can just hand it kind of like a tip thing, like, hey, look into this post-closing, make sure you go to your county office, make sure you do this. I'll work on something like that for marketing wise too, just so you have it. So then that way, when you're done, it's kind of like just a gift to them, like, hey, don't forget, I know we're done here. Like, you bought your house, congratulations, but we still want to make sure we're serving you post-close. We want to make sure you're taking advantage of the things that you can get, because a lot of people don't know that they get those benefits. So that's it.
All right. Well, if anybody has any other questions, sorry, I feel like I'm like looking at the side here. Let me pull that over. All right. Well, if anybody has any other questions, you can reach out to Sara. You all have her number. So feel free to reach out anytime. She's super good about answering a lot of questions. Oh, look, she put it in the chat.
Yep.
There you go. So reach out to Sara at any time, and there's her email, and she'll be happy to help you. And you'll see her at the headshot event, right, on the 27th. So she will be there.
Yeah.
So make sure you stop by and see her. Get your headshot. Drink some drinks on us. I think that's the best part.
The camaraderie. I like it.
Yep. It'll be a good time.
Awesome.
March 27th, Ben Franklin's Tap Room, 5 to 8. We got lots of good stuff going on.
I like it.
Well, have an amazing rest of your day, guys. Thank you, Sara, for joining us. And I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Yep. See ya.